pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's Beta Alpha Psi meeting. Today we have Christopher and Billy coming in from Goldman Sachs, and I'll give you guys the floor now.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for your time. Billy and I always enjoy coming back and doing this because it's important to give back, but two, Billy and I literally sat in your seats, a few years ago. We're both alumni from FDU. So to explain who we are, so we work for Goldman Sachs, specifically in the Ayco division, which is a part of the wealth management arm. So at heart, I am a financial advisor, right? People ask me at a cocktail party what I do, I am a financial advisor for Goldman Sachs. I have my book of clients that I deal with day in and day out on a number of topics: investments, estate planning, taxes, tax planning, insurance, really you name it. This time of year when annual enrollment is happening for a lot of clients, right? They're choosing their healthcare plans and their company benefits for next year is a busy time for us. So that's kind of what we do. About me, I'll give you kind of the 30-second pitch I always give my clients. After getting the same 2 degrees from the same school as my father, which is Fairleigh Dickinson, bachelor's in economics, and I did the kind of that 5-year program where I went right through and got my MBA, mainly on the Madison campus. I did take a few courses in the TNET campus, but after that, I went to go work for Ernst & Young, now known as EY, doing mainly financial planning, more so for rank and file employees as opposed to executives and higher net worth folks that I work with now. I was there for about 6 years. I got my CFP, I got my enrolled agent while I was there. And then about, 11 years ago, almost to the day, I came over to Goldman Sachs Ayco, and I've been working with high net worth clients ever since. So as I mentioned, I'm the advisor on my team. I'm going to hand the microphone over to Billy, who's a little bit more closer to your seats, and he can explain his role in terms of how he interacts on the advisor team and what he does day to day. And then we have a bunch of topics, right, that we're going to go through. And when Billy and I were preparing for this meeting, I always say, whenever I'm speaking to a client, I try to put myself in their shoes, right? What topics are they going to want to ask me? I try to answer all those questions before they even have a chance to ask them. So similarly, right, I'm trying to put myself in your shoes and say, well, what are the types of things that you guys might want to know about, right? So Billy and I are going to go through a handful of topics. That being said, this is your guys' time, right? I do have a hard cutoff at 5:15, so I have a note on my phone actually at 5:05 for us to stop, and then open it for questions for you guys, right? It's your time. You can ask us anything you want, right? You want to know about, we're going to touch on a number of topics, but anything you want to ask after that is free reign. So with that, Billy, if you could tell everyone about yourself, talk about a little bit about your journey and how you got to the seat you're sitting in, and what your role looks like right now.
Yep, no problem. How is everybody doing? Name is Billy Farnan. I went to FDU as well, just like Chris and everybody here. I graduated in 2022. I played on the soccer team there. Was heavily involved in campus life and everything at FDU, and really enjoyed my time there. I would say as I was going into my senior year, I was applying. So junior year I was applying, thinking about it after internships and thinking about what I wanted to do. Wasn't really too sure. There were so many options out there between different like financial roles since I'm a major in finance. So I was looking kind of across the board at everything. Was speaking to a Patricia Wire on campus and didn't really know what to do. This came across her desk. She passed it along to me. I applied, wasn't really sure what it was. I knew it was in the wealth management sector. And then I did my super days interviews, got the role. Still came in a little bit blind, I would say, at the end of the day, because you don't really know the role until you're sitting in the seat and doing it for the most part. So my role is I'm a financial analyst on the team. So I support an advisor like Chris And my job is to handle a lot of the meeting preps and the background stuff while also interacting with the clients, handling a lot of those conversations that maybe Chris can step away from and I can step in to handle pretty much interchangeably at the end of the day. So my role is to service the client to the best of my ability while also doing a lot of the prep work too before meeting and stuff like that. I would say I wasn't really sure if this was for me, I guess, in the beginning as I started. And then I learned more about what we do and how we service our clients and the interactions I have with our clients that are the high net worth individuals is really awesome. And getting to meet new people has been really cool since I like to be very personable and outgoing. So talking to clients day in and day out is like a great fit for me, I found at the end of the day. And at the like when I was sitting in your shoes, I was not sure what to do at the end of the day. And I think it was just kind of landing in the right spot at the right time at the end of the day and applying to everything and being open to everything.
Yeah, let me, Billy, I think you touched on something. So I'll kind of explain sort of our business model in terms of progression, right? If you were to come in as a client analyst, when you start with Goldman Sachs Ayco, you tend to be much more operations focused, right? Helping with account transfers, account openings, really the operation. So naturally, when you start, we're not really expecting you to have a lot of technical knowledge, right? So we're not expecting you to ask if a client says, "Hey, talk to me about the amortization of municipal bonds and all that kind of stuff." We're not expecting you guys to know that, right? So you kind of start in a much more operational role. You kind of understand how the machine works. Then, as you progress a little bit, you get into Billy's role, which even now I can say I think is one of the harder roles because you're the planner that has operational knowledge and you're the operation person that has planner knowledge. So you're kind of in the middle. You're going to have the advisor, which as time goes on, right? I haven't done a lot of the operations in probably 5, 6, 7 years now. So with each passing month and the changing of things, I get less aware of how things go. So I go to Billy, right? But at the same time, if I'm not around, I'm traveling to a client call, Billy's expected to pick up the phone and answer technical knowledge. So, uh, it's just a natural progression, right? You start a little bit more operations, then you get more technical. We work in an apprenticeship model where basically you're never going to stop learning, and probably the hardest time that you have in your career, at least in our career, is right before you get promoted, right? You're doing Billy's not on my team, but I'll pretend he is. Billy's doing everything for me in terms of, hey, he's doing the preparation, he's doing the follow-up from meetings we had last week. Oh, and by the way, he's also practicing and he's the one presenting the ideas to my clients so that, in January when he gets promoted, he can start taking on his clients himself. So it's a very busy time in your career when you're in the role that Billy's in. Okay. But let me ask you, what would you say you like most, and what would you say you like least about sort of our financial advising role?
I would say pretty much what I like most is, like I said, the client contact and meeting the clients and kind of meeting the successful people and picking their brains apart. While also it feels more personable because we go and meet these clients in person. You get to connect with their families as well. So I like that aspect a lot of the client relationship side of it, definitely. Some stuff that I might not like a little bit is at the end of the day, sometimes you have to meet deadlines for clients. So there are times where it could be a late night because the client needs a report by the next morning or that night. So I would say sometimes that comes into play. But at the end of the day, if it makes the client happy and they appreciate it, that's all worth the while. And so I would say that probably sticks with it most. And Chris, I know we spoke about it a little bit. For people coming into the financial advising industry or even the financial or just a work industry, what skills do you think are most important in progressing quickly and just coming in ready?
Yeah. So I'll tell all new hires, interns. I actually spoke with a college student who applied for an internship this morning. He's in Muhlenberg. First and foremost, you can't teach attitude, right? Coming in every day, with an optimistic view and showing that you're enthusiastic and eager and willing to learn. You can't really teach to somebody doing for internships and real life positions. I've been part of some of those interviews, and you'd be surprised how people sit back like this and they're talking to me like this, or whether you have to. We're all addicted to our phones, right? And whether you need to put it in the other room. But there was one person I saw kept looking at their phone, right? To me, that doesn't show the right attitude. It didn't really show me that they were enthusiastic about the role, right? So expectations of a new team member is having the right attitude, which I don't know that can really be taught. Second is, listen, just try not to make the same mistake twice. Okay. You are expected, and you very much will make mistakes and do things not the right way, right? That's part of learning and growing. I still do it. But what I say is try not to make the same mistake twice, right? So if Billy's brand new on my team and we're doing an investment proposal and I say, well, Billy, do this, because this is why we present it this way instead of the way that you did it originally. Here's why, right? The next time that we have an investment proposal, I hope I don't see that same error or mistake or I hope that he takes the advice that was given to him, right? And you start doing that after 6, 9, 12 months, your first year, there's a lot less mistakes to be had. They told me to do it this way, and I get it. And then I got to listen, and the client understood it because of the way they presented it. Things will start to click. So to be succinct, the two pieces of advice that I could give right off the bat is have the right attitude, show the right attitude, and try not to make the same mistake twice.
Yeah, I echo that too. Making the same mistake twice is definitely something to try to avoid at the end of the day. And even if you just jot down what you did wrong and then just take a look at it right before you send something along, goes a long way.
Along that vein, right, in our industry, there's a lot of tests to be had. Some of you are probably accounting majors, so there's the CPA, there's the CFP, there's the SIE, there's the 7, right, which I'm sure at least half of you end up getting one of those in your time, right? So your chances are you're going to head into a lot of standardized tests. Now, I haven't taken one in a little while, but I can tell you the way I always studied, and I tended to do pretty well on my tests, is I always went through and I wrote down really the question and the answer of the questions that I got wrong on all of my practice tests. And I tended to do well with that sort of method. So when Billy says, hey, even if you jot it down, right, that what I did wrong or, what I was asked to improve or what I was asked to change, for me, that was a way that it kind of made it stick in my head. So, Billy, I'll come back to you. You've been at our firm for a few years now. What's your impression of, the transition from, student to real world professional? What do you know now that you didn't know? Call it in a good way or a bad way, as opposed to when you were a full-time student.
Yeah, I think it's a change in the way you think, and I think happens gradually at the end of the day. And it's kind of not being in a student mindset and being like an open mindset when there's not only one right answer at the end of the day. There's multiple answers for every question, which kind of took me a little bit of adjusting to get to. When I would get asked a question, I'd be like, this is the answer. Like, that's what I was taught. This is the answer. And I think that kind of developing that portion of my like technical ability and being able to present, this is the answer, but it could also be this depending on this, and thinking about it like that took me a little bit to get used to. And I would say that was a pretty big transition for me. And also just the work ethic at the end of the day goes a long way. I thought about when I started, I looked back at it because I just had my feedback review recently, and I work just as hard, if not harder now. And that's put me in a great position going forward. And I'm a morning person. Some people are night people. It depends on who you are. but I think that you can't teach work ethic at the end of the day. And if you do, you can set yourself apart pretty quickly in an industry by maybe showing up early or staying late. In certain scenarios, obviously, you don't want to just be sitting here doing nothing. You want to be bettering yourself. But I think that that's something that kind of helped me transition pretty smoothly at the end of the day. Chris, what about our work from home policy, and how do you view, I know you have family, kids, dog, how do you view our work-life balance here at the firm?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it continues on the thought you have about being a morning person, right? Well, so Goldman's work from home policy, and I think across a lot of the big financial firms, is we are an in-office team, office culture. More recently, FINRA, right, the regulatory agency that governs a lot of what we do, they made a rule that says, listen, if you work from home more than 30 days in a calendar year, your firm has to register your home as a satellite office. And our relatively new CEO came in and said, like, listen, that's not the worst case scenario, but let's be honest, like, is the guy that's been around 35 years going to get away with that easier than the 2-year analyst? Yeah, probably. So it was unofficially told to us, stay below that 30-year or that 30-day. But at the same time, I can tell you, you will learn so much more by being in the office and just listening to people, hearing people. It's a lot easier for me to go to Billy and say, Billy, can you help me with this? And he'll see the deer in the headlights look that I have, versus if he has to IM me when we're both home. And then it's easier for Billy to say, Chris, give me till 10:30. Well, yeah, I'll call you then. And then Billy gets caught up, and next thing you know, it's 11, and now I'm not even on that project anymore, kind of thing, right? So we are a work from the office culture and firm. We have work from home days when you need it. Okay, for example, it's teachers convention in New Jersey, right? My wife's actually going away. I'm actually working from home from my parents tomorrow, so they can watch my 2 young kids who are off of school, right? So the flexibility is there, but I remember having a brand new analyst that graduated, I think, in 2020 and joined us in 2021. She saw work from home as a right versus a privilege. She left on her own, but I can tell you she was not doing as well as she could have. That was all during COVID, so it was different circumstances. But the attitude, kind of the mindset was, no, we deserve to work from home. That's not really going to cut it, at least at Goldman Sachs, Ayco. Work-life balance, I always, there's no set definition, right? You can ask 5 people and they all have their different definitions of what that means. To me, that means that sometimes life is going to need a little bit more of your attention, and sometimes work is going to need a little bit more of your attention. In my 20s and 30s, I didn't put my life on hold for my career, but I happened to not get married until I was in my mid 30s, and I didn't have kids until then either. I was always a morning person, right? I was in my butt was in a chair at 7 a.m. for the most part. Guess what? That got noticed by the higher ups, who happen to also be morning people. Now I'm at a point where I have a 2 and a 5-year-old. Life requires a lot more of my time now than my job does. So it ebbs and flows, right? In a couple of years, when they're a little bit more self-sufficient, I won't need to be around for them as much, and it'll kind of swing back to work, right? But at the same time, right, you got to know that. So we prepare taxes, right? So it's no secret, from the middle of October to the middle of April, and then from, call it, Labor Day to October 15th, work requires a lot more of our time, right? I was a caddy for many years. I would love to go see the Masters golf tournament down in Georgia one year. Guess what? That usually happens in March or early April. I'm probably not going to do that until I retire, right? It's just what you sign up for. So I think the important thing is you need to figure out what your definition of work-life balance is. When I graduated, I remember saying, if I need to work 80 hours, I didn't care. I really wanted to make it and make money. I couldn't do that now. I couldn't work 80 hours now. Aside from my family situation, I don't know that I have it in me anymore. So that's, two things. One, you'll come up with your own definition, and that may change over time as well. Okay. Billy, how about you? Right. So you graduated kind of at the tail end of COVID almost. Has your view on work life, work from home, work life balance changed?
Not that substantially. I would say when I first started, it was 5 days in the office. Since we were new, you're not given any work from home days, so you have to earn those over a year, 6 months. And still today, I think that any job starting, you should be in the office 5 days. I know probably that's an unpopular opinion for a lot of students, but I think that's the quickest way to learn and quickest way to bridge that gap between being new and understanding your role fully. So I think being in the office helps. And then also there's also a good culture here, I'd say, which helps going forward. And sometimes when I'm late on some projects, there's other people here, run out, grab dinner, bring it back, finish up some stuff, or even in the mornings, go grab breakfast or something. And like Chris said, it is usually the higher ups that are morning people, management. And so them seeing you here definitely doesn't go unnoticed. And I think that being in the office at the end of the day is how you're going to grow your career the fastest and the most efficient, because you're going to be able to close that gap on learning stuff and being efficient at your role quicker than if you were to work from home at the end of the day. And there are times when you have to work from home. I worked from home last Friday because my parents were coming home from Europe, so I wanted to see them. So I went down to my house in South Jersey, saw them, worked from there. And so there are times for it, obviously. But I think in the beginning, it's best to be in the office in order to learn the role fully and become more efficient going forward.
That's great. So I'll address one more topic before we give you guys some final pieces of advice, and that's AI, right? We get also asked often from students, interns, people that are applying, even sometimes clients, right? How is AI kind of entering your profession and your role? And it's starting. I mean, we have our own version of GSAI right now, which I'll call it for us. It's kind of a Google on steroids, meaning if I'm asking it a question, a technical question, I think it knows to put the answer in a little bit more. How would I need to know this for a client situation? So from that aspect, it's certainly starting to creep in. Um, the college student this morning asked me about it, and I said, listen, I don't know that the financial advisor role is ever going to go away in terms of humans. I think what Billy and I do, and the fact that we are truly holistic in what we do, right? A lot of advisors don't talk about tax planning, and the reason is it doesn't really generate money when you do tax planning, right? I think there will always be a role for humans in the financial advising industry. At the same time, right, some of the fees on the different investment strategies that we have, are we going to be able to charge that much in 5-10 years with AI? Maybe not. Maybe not. So I think I'm comfortable in my role knowing that I provide a service to a white glove service to a higher net worth band of clients that appreciate the human interaction, and I do a truly holistic job. Whereas the advisors that are more your traditional stock pickers and really just investment management, is there going to be less of those in 5, 10, 15 years? The answer is probably. If I had to guess, the answer is yes, probably. So that's how I see it so far. A little bit else about our role. Trying to think. Travel. We live in a Zoom world. So I'd say 90% of my meetings now are Zoom. That being said, I think every one of our clients still understands and appreciates the value of an in-person meeting, right? I went and saw a client who was he worked for Boeing and had worked for the Boeing in the helicopter division, and ended up going down to Alabama a lot for they had a big army base down there. And I asked him about it. He said, well, a lot of times I was going and doing what you're doing now, which is coming and building the relationship. So it was kind of interesting. Like, I went there with an agenda and I had a few topics, but I booked an hour at his house versus a half hour. Even I know I didn't really have an hour's worth of topics or agenda items to cover. And he knew it. He knew that part of the reason to go down was to build the relationship, right? Coming out of COVID, our region head, our boss in New Jersey, basically said, "Don't be afraid to go there with half an agenda and just chit chat with your clients," right? That's when I asked them, "How's your daughter doing driving?" Right? "How's your son? He's a junior now. Is he looking for schools? What's he majoring in?" Then they ask me about my kids, right? And you just end up having that human connection and building. So I am on the road a lot less now, and it's funny because when I am on the road, it's pretty enjoyable because you do get just that human interaction that is nice that you get in the office, but when you truly connect with the clients, it's very satisfying. So, Billy, a couple minutes left. How about just a couple final 1, 2, 3 pieces of advice for college students that are finishing their career as a student and looking to begin their career as a professional?
Yeah, I think one that we really haven't talked about much is try and grow your network at the end of the day. Like Chris was talking about relationships, relationships go a far way in this industry. Obviously, everybody knows that. But don't be afraid to cold email somebody and just ask for 10 to 15-minute coffee chat because you never know who they might know or at the end of the day what they're going to talk to you about. And you probably might not get an answer or you might. And just go into there and have a good couple things you want to talk to them about and that interest you maybe. And I think that goes a long way. That's happened to me. An intern that got hired recently cold emailed me and just asked me for 10 to 15 minutes. I was free. I gave him a call. We talked. I really thought the person was bright and they came with like an agenda on stuff to talk about and network with. I passed their resume along and they happened to get hired. They went through all the necessary chains, obviously, and interviews, but just something like that goes a long way. And I think that can't be undermined is building those relationships, building your network and creating your brand at the end of the day goes a long way. And then also just hard work. I think hard work just goes so far at the end of the day. I might not be the smartest person, but I feel as if I can work just as hard, if not harder than most people in order to grow my personal brand and my knowledge. And I think that's something that separates a lot of people apart. As people always say, you can't teach hard work. So I think that you probably all have that, and it's just pushing that to the next level at the end of the day.
That's great. Thank you. Continuing along your hard work comment, right? One of the analogies that one of the leaders of our office says is drive your own bus, right? And as part of that is your own brand, right? So when they say your own brand, if everyone knows that Billy's the early person, right? Things like, are they going to get the job done? Are they willing to put the time in, right? Drive your own bus. Nobody's going to push your career as hard as you. You're going to have mentors and you're going to have people that will help you along the way, but no one will push or care as much about your career as you. So make sure you're driving your own bus. One thing that was told to me, and I find it very, very true, which is bring solutions, not problems, right? My father put it to me, no one needs another problem pointer outer, right? And by that, I mean, I don't need, Billy on my team to come and say, Chris, this isn't working. Or, I can't figure out this. I want you to say, well, great. That's good. Okay, good. But what did you do to figure out? Who else did you ask? Did you use resources? Did you go ask some other people? Right? If you come and say, listen, I tried asking them, they didn't know. I tried calling them and they were unavailable. Now I know at least you tried to use your resources, right? You tried to bring a solution versus a problem, right? And even now I will do that to my boss. Hey, listen, Brian, there's a problem with this client. Here's what I think we should do, right? Make your boss's job easier is going to get you ahead. All right. No one has to teach you how to be organized, right? By that I mean, right, we actually had an intern over the summer who apparently they had a calendar invite so that it was towards the end of the internship. so they could all go take a group photo. Okay. And everybody had the invite and everyone showed up except for one person. And his excuse was, I got really caught up in, in the project. It's like, well, there's a very small sample size of us in your internship time here. That's one of them. How are we going to know that you didn't get caught up with this client when you told Billy you were going to call at 5? You didn't call at 5, right? Nobody has to teach you how to be organized. You only get so many of those. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that email. Oh, I must have deleted that. Or, oh my gosh, you know what? We did this form wrong. Can we need to resend it to you so that you can sign it again? You only get so many mea culpas before you start losing the trust of the client, right? It takes forever to build it and very little to break it, right? The smell test, right? A lot of time you're going to be learning things. We use the analogy, you're going to be drinking through a fire hose. You're only going to be able to take in so much at a time, right? And that's going to continue no matter what career you're in for probably the first few years, right? But at the same time, I think often we get very bogged down in trying to learn the details of how do I present this, how do I build this investment proposal? How do I do this tax projection? Am I putting all the numbers in the right way? Don't be afraid when you finish your work to sit back and give it a smell. Does this smell all right? Does this smell fishy? Okay. The example I'll use is today I looked at a tax projection for a client we're meeting this coming Tuesday. And I went, okay, so this person owes $225,000 in taxes and they made a little over $1 million. That it smells wrong to me. Okay. To me, that tells me that the analyst, the person that prepared this, they prepared it. They didn't really look at the result and say, is this logical? Does this make sense to me? Okay. You'd be surprised at how much, just the smell tag, what is this telling me? Does this make sense? Even if I don't fully understand it, does it make sense? You'd be surprised at how far that goes. I'm sorry, and I have one more point here to go back to being organized, right? You'd be surprised at how often people say they're going to do something and then don't do it, right? It was a boss I had prior to the one running our office now. She was very big on, if you tell your client you're going to call them at 9:30, you best call them at 9:30, right? You'd be surprised at how often that does not happen from colleagues, from clients, from anything else. But like Billy said, if you don't necessarily have to be the smartest person, but if you're reliable, right, and and the client knows that, listen, I told you I was going to call you at 2, I'm calling. I don't have the answer yet, but that's because I reached out to these few different people and I'm waiting on a response from my tax people who are researching it. They're going to say, okay, Chris, thanks for letting me know. Let me know when you do, right? I told you I was going to call you at 2. I called you at 2. I feel silly saying that every time I speak to a class like you guys, but I have to because I just see it so often that it's taken for granted. So with that, we are exactly at 5:05. We'll open up for questions. Like I said, it could be anything you guys want to know about. Tests, favorite classes. It could be about, Billy's vacation this coming summer. Anything you guys want to talk about? We got about 10 minutes.
Hi. I had a question. So it's both of you can answer. I was just curious if there's anything specific about working at the company that you feel like you wouldn't know unless you worked there. That is like a big deal.
Yeah, I'll start. Yes, and it's a very good question. So our business model. So I say we work for Goldman Sachs, Ayco, AYCO. Ayco has been around for 50 years. We've been owned by Goldman since 2004. The business model is unique in terms of how we obtain clients. So we'll go to companies as a whole and say, well, why don't you, as the company, pay Ayco GS for your executives to be our clients? So, for example, we'll go to Fairleigh Dickinson, pretend it's a corporation. We'll go to Fairleigh Dickinson and say, why don't you pay for all of your professors to be our clients, right? Your professors, all of your executives are very busy. We've actually seen often that, they don't have time or they neglect their own finances at the expense of doing work for the company. This is a way you can tell them that you care, and it's a retention tool, right? Hey, as long as they're employed by FDU, they have access to Billy as their advisor. So with that, right, when you get promoted and you're sometime in your 30s usually, you're given a book of clients at Ayco that you wouldn't really have otherwise, right? I was given the CFO of a very large company who was at the time probably worth 20 million. My second year I was promoted, and that's because we have such a robust training and apprenticeship type model that the company was confident I knew what I was doing. And even though I might have looked a little young and didn't have any gray hair at the time, compared to some of my colleagues, I was able to get on that call and show the person what I was doing. The point is, if I'm 35, I don't usually get that $20 million client if I'm working for another firm. So that's a little bit different in terms of how we obtain our clients. Now, listen, from there, that client is now on board seats and he has wealthy friends. It's my job to try to get other people to sign up. So you're expected to help grow the business and your own book, but you don't need to grow it from scratch, from the get-go.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And I think the one thing I would say is like the resources that we have are unmatched. And a lot of firms have great resources, and I just value ours. I think there's somebody to go to for every question, whether that's inside my office or outside my office. GS is such a large company that somebody at the end of the day is going to have the answer, and is going to be more knowledgeable in a subject than I might be. So using our resources, I think, is really an awesome aspect.
And what Billy means, right, is if someone has a complex tax question, I may say, hey, I'm bringing in Damien, our tax person, to talk about it. I briefed it on it. And clients never bat an eye because they know that, hey, listen, Chris and Billy are my team. They're my core. They're my quarterback. But they're going to bring other people in, whether it's, hey, we're going to talk about private credit. Hey, I'm seeing all these headlines that talk about how private credit is the devil and there's going to be so many problems. We bring in our private asset team, and they can talk circles around that and get as far into or not into the weeds as you want.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions?
No, yeah, go ahead, Farnan.
Hi, so can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Great, so I actually used to work for an insurance company not too long ago as an insurance producer, and I was kind of on the track to become a financial advisor like yourself, Chris. But kind of what my question is going to be was already answered in the previous question, and that was going to be, what is the difference between Goldman Sachs, like being a large size firm, and myself, my situation where I was in the insurance company? What are some of the differences between financial advising between that and you guys? But you kind of already answered my question in the last comment, but is there any additional comments you can add as well?
Yeah, I mean, the amount of insurance policies I sell versus the amount of policies that the advisor at Northwestern Mutual sells, let's be honest, I'm going to sell a lot less because that's not really what my job is. I don't want to talk bad about that, but I think in those instances, right, the person at Northwestern Mutual is going to be probably have insurance at the first and foremost of their mind, whereas someone at Morgan Stanley is probably going to have investments in mind. I think we truly do the holistic approach. I sell life insurance. Yeah, so at its core, we're probably doing the same thing, but the focus is a lot of people say they are holistic, and they say they do estate planning, which is, hey, I'm going to introduce you to Carmine, who's the estate attorney. They'll take care of your will for you. See you later. Whereas I'm going to sit down and say, hey, listen, here's what I know of your situation. Here's how I think you should, draft your documents. You probably want to give your assets to your kids via trust, because if they turn 18 and they all of a sudden inherit $3 million, are you going to be okay with that? No, probably not. So I go through sort of create a draft of the estate documents and then hand them off to the estate attorney. And I'm still involved, right? In my example, Carmine's the estate attorney. I'm still facilitating the conversations. Hey, was there a draft available? I didn't see it. Can I review it before it gets signed, kind of thing? versus a lot of other firms that say they do estate planning. And this is just the example I'm using. Their estate planning is you should update your beneficiaries, and here's an estate attorney that you can go talk to. Good luck.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have a question?
Real quick before you guys leave, how often do you guys go to a team and like discuss what certain clients should be investing in before you go back and make that decision yourself, or do you guys make that decision as a whole team before going back to the clients?
I'd say both. Billy, why don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it depends on the case. Recently I had a client call and they said that we were talking about cash and maximizing the yield on cash, and they're like, I have an extra 100,000 right here. What should we do with it? And on the spot, I looked at their allocation, came up with the answer right there. Then there's another situation. On Friday, we had a meeting, and prior to that meeting, the client had about 7 million they were looking to allocate. So me and my advisor got an investment proposal together and really dug deep into it. So it's case by case at the end of the day. I think you need to be knowledgeable and ready to answer the questions whenever they come. And that's why I'm consistently reading the markets, looking into stuff, and also just keeping in touch with their asset allocation across the board, and pretty much knowing if this question was to arise, where I would put it and kind of why. Because you can't just say, hey, put 100,000 into this stock and get away with it. Usually you want to give them the knowledge, and our job is to educate at the end of the day and why we're doing stuff and back our opinion.
Spot on. I'm already having investment conversations for clients whose bonus is going to pay in Q1, right? I say, well, listen, because if we meet with our clients, call it 4 times a year, quarterly, right? My retirees that have less going on, maybe it's 2 or 3 times a year. A brand new client, I probably meet 5, 6 times the first year. But I think every meeting touches on taxes and investments in some way, if not in depth, at least at a high level. So there's usually no surprises. But I think Billy hit the nail on the head, right? Is this I have a huge liquidity event, or hey, I found some extra dollars, where does it go?
Next year we have a client, he's gonna make over probably 100 million, and we're planning for that now. So like, it's case by case, obviously.
Thank you guys.
Yep.
Any other brave souls?
Thank you guys for the questions.
I'll do another question. So I'm an accounting major right now, but I have interest in the finance industry. Is there anyone like myself is there like any positions like in accounting at Goldman Sachs, or is it strictly finance?
No. Short answer is no. We have an entire New Jersey tax group that sits in our office, who are the most popular people in the office from February to April and Labor Day to October 15th. Our poor head of tax can't grab a coffee without being assaulted by 3 or 4 people. So, so the answer is we have dedicated tax. I mean, audit. I'm sure within Goldman there's people that are within audit, but that's not the firm for you.
Speak for that myself. I'm a professor here, but I worked for 10 years in Goldman's controller's office, and we just hired CPAs. They only hired CPAs. We didn't need CPAs, but everyone who was hired was a CPA, and there are thousands of positions because you need P&L people, you need people to do the daily books and records. There's an awful lot of accounting back office positions.
100%. The company's so big at the end of the day, there's something for everyone. It's just kind of fitting into the right spot at the right time.
Great, thank you.
And there's internal mobility, right? We actually it was probably about a year ago. We had a person leave our New Jersey office and go work for the municipal bond group in New York City at our headquarters. So once you get in, as a firm, if you're a good employee, we don't want to lose you. We'll help you get to where you want to go. All right.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys for the time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys for coming as well. It was a great presentation.
Very good.
All right, guys.
Best of luck, guys. I know you guys
Have a
got
good one.
finals coming up. Best of luck.
Thank you. Yeah. It's a tough time, but thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good one. All right. Thank you guys all for coming today. We're gonna end the meeting here, but I have everyone's attendance, so you guys all have a good day.
Or not, do we have a meeting next week or is it next week off?
We have a meeting next week.
Is it live or is it, and if it is live, what are they coming to?
I can check that right now, but sorry, 1 second. I believe they're coming in person, but I'd have to talk to Damien.
Okay, Jason, just before, instead of on Tuesday, sending out a message about it, could you try and do it like early Monday morning? Because if they're at a campus, we want to make sure someone is at the right campus.
Yeah, I'll send it early Monday morning.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Everyone have a good one. Bye-bye.
Will I fall again? I'm scared of heights.